Welcome back to 3 Point Firefighter. Today's guest is DJ Stone. Now, DJ has been in the fire service for 24 years. He has recently retired from Fort Walton Beach, Florida, and is now the training chief at South Walton Fire District. He has a class coming up at FDIC called the Grab Analysis, where you can see actual videos of grabs in the 850 area code and discuss his firsthand knowledge of them. He also manages a fantastic Facebook page with his brother called the 850 Fireman. Now, I enjoy talking to DJ so much, and he made such an impression on me. I have changed all my children's name to DJ Stone. I've changed all my pets' name to DJ Stone. I started to change my wife's name to DJ Stone. She was not having it. But anyway, we had a fantastic talk. Please listen, please like, please subscribe. And with that, DJ Stone. Today's episode is brought to you by Fire Facilities. Make training count with their custom-made, all-steel live fire training facilities. Their made-in-the-USA towers and burn rooms are the best for preparing, responding, and surviving the challenges you face every day.
And so in relation to that, I would say in some respect, I'm a student of communication. You know what I mean? Like, I really admire somebody who knows how to communicate. And one of the biggest things I admired about people who communicate is the ones that are able to talk to 1,000 people, but it feels like they're talking right to us. You know what I mean?
Yes. And there's only a handful of people I've ever encountered that were like that. You know, you could be in a large group. Dr. Rich Gasaway is one of them that.
Yeah, I've never seen that guy. I mean, I know him. I've never seen him though.
I think he's great. I think he's great. I haven't talked to him in a couple of years, and I thought about having him on here, but I get real, I don't know, nervous maybe. And he's got such a big podcast, and he travels the world. I'm like, man, I'm just some Southern Indiana hack, bro. You know, what am I gonna do?
Well, I feel I'm a coastal suburban fireman is what I call myself.
Yeah.
You know, from nowhere, USA, and I think that's one of the. I don't know if it's a strength, but one of the vantage points. 'Cause most of us, all due respect to the urban sector, because that's where we learn most of our craft, right? From the guys in the busy context. But most of us are either volunteer or suburban scenario, minimum staffed, kind of the same story everywhere thing. And I like to think that, like Brian Brush, I'm kind of part of that group. But like speaking of Gasaway, like I said, I've known about him for a long time. I've never seen him in person. I know he does a lot across our business, but I've never had the opportunity to sit with him. But I have had a tremendous opportunity over the last 10 years, living where I live, working with my brother, and with the efforts that Kurt does right down the street. I think he's up to 15 or 20 conferences a year now. Kidding.
Wow. Yes.
But I'm joking.
He
But
does a ton.
He does 5, and then he does these other little things. All that to say, all that energy brought to the panhandle of Florida, it's been a huge impact to me and the culture around us. We've had an opportunity to get to know a lot of people I would have never met otherwise, and be able to glean from and have as mentors and friends.
Right. Well, that whole area, there is so much talent there in that area. Obviously, you included, but you talked about Kurt Isaacson, and of course, I know Nick Peppard quit Florida altogether and moved, but North Florida Expo. But there's so much talent there that it's an exciting place, I would imagine, for a firefighter, because you don't have to go too far to catch somebody that I like to call a heavy hitter, or I call them landscapers, honestly. And that's people that change the landscape of the fire department. Right.
Oh, that's good. Never thought of it that way.
Yeah, I'm super, super smart, and I came up with that on my own. So yeah. Did I say super smart? That's not what I meant.
Yeah. No, of course you're super smart. I mean, you have a pretty good podcast, so that's a start.
Bless your heart. I wasn't fishing, but I'm reeling that one in, man. Thank you.
Yeah.
It's my passion project. It is sort of a COVID baby, but
Hmm.
it's my favorite thing, and I love it. I love it. I was today just I woke up ready for this, and
Hmm.
I started like rewatching some stuff that you've done. I was just like, yeah, super excited. And I
Man,
even this is honor for you. That you should take this as respect. My wife started talking to me when I was coming down here, and I said, "Hold on, I've got a podcast." And then I gave her one of these. Now I'm going to pay for it. We both
dude,
know I'm going to pay for that.
I never give one of those to my wife. Are you crazy?
Oh, I was a fool. I'll pay for it, but I'll get her flowers or something like that,
Yeah, yeah.
But
The one,
that
yeah,
area it reminds me of like I think about Houston. There's a ton of talent
yeah,
there.
right.
Mo Davis, Jacob
Yes, me too.
Johnson, and Devin Craig. Man, you can go on and on. And then of course, I always bring up the Pacific Northwest, Oregon,
Hmm.
and Washington State. I've met and
Right,
seen some fantastic firefighters.
right.
So when I ran into or started talking to Nick, I started really focusing on that area,
Mm.
and there is just a lot of talent, man, a lot of talent. No pressure
Yeah,
there at all, right?
we're like, no, I mean, I appreciate kind words. It's always a little uncomfortable, right? Because I certainly don't put myself in the category of a lot of the guys that you've interviewed by no stretch. And me, like you, there's a real creative side of my personality. Of course, you may or may not know my brother Shannon.
Hmm.
He's a lot more out there when it comes to speaking. He really does have that sort of gift that we're talking about.
Hmm.
He's super good at communicating and definitely one of my mentors and examples. But all that to say, I round back to the podcast thing, and I've been talking with him. Geez, it's been 3, 4 years probably about it. And I was like, it's hard to redo something when so many people do it well. And so in the back of my mind, I'm still marinating on it, but something differently, and I haven't landed on it yet. I've got,
Right.
I mean, just notes, in my phone of ideas, and I'll sit on it and I'm marinating. I'm like, no, that's just not the right. It's not the thing that
Yeah.
like what you're doing now is that passion pushes you to this end to
Yeah.
produce this. It's a lot of energy and a lot of time,
It.
probably for no
Yeah.
monetarily reward. Not that everything's about money, but there's a breakover in our life where time is money in a sense, if you're having to put other things off,
Well,
you know what
sure.
I mean? So in light of that, I love what you're doing. I admire the guys that spend the time to get the right equipment and good sound quality. I'm a drummer by hobby, and a musician, so I
Hmm.
key into that stuff really quickly. And the one thing that really, specifically about podcasts, I'm going down a different road, but it'll make sense
Please,
in a second. Is
this is what I live for.
yeah, it's the poor quality. The fire service is just starting to get to where we produce quality stuff for ourselves.
Hmm.
But the fire service, unlike anything else, there's no real lane for monetary income. So it's purely a passion driven thing. And you
Right.
saw it in training early on years ago. Let's say 10, 12, 15 years ago. And still to this day, a lot of the conferences are passion driven.
Hmm.
Dudes ain't making money on conferences for the most part. They're breaking
Hmm.
even. But, but I will say people are starting to figure out that, hey man, time is money when you go to share somewhere and you have a platform, like a Gasaway or Salka or any of these guys, they charge a premium. Well, here's the thing, man. You're talking about 40, 50 years of experience. You're talking
Hmm.
about what is their hourly rate to break away? What is their commitment to come and share and do that thing apart from their family, the things that are hard to put a price tag on. So there's that breakover of time, effort, money, and what's it worth to do it. The cool thing about these podcasts and video, and I say all the time, I would much rather be behind something where you don't see me
Hmm.
and talk than be out in front. So these kind of things are a little bit uncomfortable for me, but the breakover is I, I would assume you have the feeling of really dropping a pebble in the fire service and making a difference because people can round back to this in 20, 25 years and
Hmm.
watch these interviews of these
Right.
icons on the job. You're interviewing people, in my opinion, that are not me. I'm just saying, like the Aaron Fields, right? Like all these other big guys that you've interviewed
Right.
that they're going to go down in a legendary form of shifting the fire service in one way or another. That's
Right.
exciting to me. You know,
I,
I love
I,
that
I want
ability
to
to
disagree
communicate
with
with
you
them.
though. I've got to interrupt and I've got to disagree. You're definitely part of that.
Okay.
Um, and because, when you sit around the firehouse and you talk about certain people out there like yourself making an effort, sharing your passion, your name comes up. Your brother's name comes up. All these people come up. Now, it's everyone I've interviewed like that is just like you. They're like, look, I'm trying to put out a message. There's nothing special about
Mm-hmm.
me. But I think I just kind of disagree. I think you are that guy. You probably don't want that. Like if it all went away tomorrow, you probably wouldn't care, right? Because that's not
No,
the accolades and admiration. It isn't what feeds you. It's the fire service and making it better. So mad
100%.
respect for that. It's crazy. I've been meeting people that when I started this podcast, I had an unreal expectation. I thought, well, first off, there's no way I'll get so and so and so and so. They don't know who I
Mm.
am, and then, but every single one has responded that way. I don't know
Mm.
who I am to be on your podcast. And again, I mean, this is a little
Mm-hmm.
rickety podcast for me, but it's no weekly scrap. But that thing has far
It's
reach.
huge.
It is huge, and
Brilliant idea of a podcast too.
and he's the OG. I mean, there's a lot
Yeah,
of great podcasts out there, but the
sure.
way he involves the audience, and
Right, right.
now it's not that you're not accessible. You are accessible as a human being, but now you're even more so. Now these people
Sure.
can say, "Hey, look, I get to ask. I always want to ask Shannon Stone this question, or I always want to ask, Aaron Fields
Mm-hmm.
or Jared Sergi these questions." So it's really cool for us who are the fanboys, which I'm
Right,
definitely a
right.
fanboy.
Me too,
Uh,
man. 100%.
Oh, you got to see me at FDIC. I'm like, oh shit,
Yeah,
look at this Ray McCormick, And
yeah.
I was doing a hot wings challenge with Dave Mellon, and so we're recording it and everything. And Ray McCormick walked by,
That's
and you
funny,
can watch
man.
it to this day. And
Yeah,
I go, dude, that's Ray McCormick.
yeah.
I love that about me. If I had to brag on one thing about me, which I don't brag on a whole lot, other than my good looks and super
Right.
intelligence,
Yeah.
is because I mean I went to high school. I'm not gonna brag. Is I
Me
love
too.
fanboying. I
I'm
love
working on
having
my
30 years.
associates.
Yeah, see, there you go. I've got a couple of those degrees. I'm not going to lie, but
Yeah.
it the fire service is so amazing, and to get to talk to people and be accessible, have people accessible
Hmm.
is awesome. And Corley once told me, he goes, this podcast thing. He goes, it's like I get a keynote speaker to myself,
No
all for
kidding, right?
free.
That's cool.
And
And it's
I'll
opened
be
up an avenue for him and his gift and his abilities because he's an exceptional communicator. In his
oh yeah,
program, if you watch his program, so I do that as well. And I know people watch my program that I teach, and I'm trying to be conscious about it, and I'm working on ways to get better feedback. But the way Corley does his program, as an example,
Mhm.
it's very planned, but you wouldn't know it's planned. It just seamlessly goes down a track. But
Right.
that takes a lot of work and skill. But the
It
point
does.
is, his podcast, in a sense, has given him a platform of influence to walk out dreams, like write books, like sharing his message about leadership and that passion. That's awesome. Like that's
Yeah.
inspiring to me as a creative. Not that I want to do that. It's just it's inspiring to watch people. I'm the type of person that I want to see people have success around me. And
Yes.
for me, like what's exciting on my recent career transition into the training division is I realized within a month or two that I get compensated to do that. That's pretty cool. I get compensated to cheerlead guys to get better at the job. I get
Yeah.
compensated to it's, I'm learning how to do this because it's more difficult than what I'm about to say, but to dig deeper on the job in different
Right.
ways. Well, now my scope is just it's not a shift of people as a battalion. It's 100 plus people having a medium sized department and trying to hit all those high points. And at the end of the day, I'm a people pleaser. I like
Mhm.
to please people, but the point is, like, I get to be excited about that. I get to get compensated to inspire people, and then guys like Corley, yourself, and others have this creative platform. I love it. I
Mhm.
love it. Like it just keeps my mind turning and keeps me engaged because there's ups and downs. I mean, for me, going into my 23rd year in the service, career wise, and yeah, I mean, I've had good and bad. times like everybody else, moments of
Okay.
inspiration, moments of just mouth breathing, like just blank, like a
Yeah.
writer's block, in a sense. But no, anyways, all that stuff really is exciting to me, and I am a student of communication. So back to your earlier comment, I really appreciate it. It's highly encouraging. I'm trying to communicate in that manner when I do speak, because if anything, working in emergency services, as you know, and a lot of guys probably listening or watching know, is that we learn to play it cool when you really don't have the answer and you really don't know what's going on. You know what I'm saying? Like,
Yeah.
it's like the duck in the water thing,
Oh yeah.
where up top the duck is cool, calm, but on bottom, he's kicking like crazy because it's out of
Kicking.
control. Yeah, and so I liken that to the same thing, because I ain't gonna lie, not that, I could have 20 people at FDIC, I could have 200. I have no idea what to expect. I mean, I went there with my brother a couple years ago, and we shared the program that I teach as a team, which was the original concept. And then
Hmm.
now I'm going back by myself. I ain't gonna lie, man. I'm like way nervous to do it. But I've had the luxury of having a lot of friends who have been there and done that, and they're able to say, "Man, don't worry about it. Don't sweat it. Just keep doing the thing that you do, and be you, and be authentic, and be transparent." And that's kind
And
of
that's
a
really the key, though,
recipe
right?
for success. Yeah.
For people to see your passion, to hear your message, you
Hmm.
have to be authentic. And I have
Yes.
met a small amount of people that have a message, but they're not authentic. It's very,
Mm-mm.
I don't know. It's hard for you to buy in sometimes. But for me, I've never submitted to FDIC. I'm doing my very first conference here in Indiana here in a couple of weeks. It's the first time I've ever done anything. So now I got a class. I want to submit it. So I kind of have this goal in my head, and my goal is the instructor's room at FDIC. I don't know if I'll ever
Yeah.
get there. I'm gonna try like crazy, but I
Yeah.
can't imagine going in there and looking around. Again, fanboy. I would have to be
Yeah.
sort of cool. I'd have to be like, "Hey man, what's up? What's up, man?" But it's I'm like,
Like a duck, man.
oh my god, it's crazy. So that's kind of my goal. So I mean, you're gonna have a blast up there, aren't you? I mean, yeah, yeah.
I
Are you
think
carrying the
so.
whole thing yourself now? Yeah, but I mean, you've been up there, you've done the
Hmm.
speaking. The people that are signing up to see you want to hear your message. It's so
Yeah.
different than your own department. Like
Right.
Brian Zeitz out of Kirkwood, right outside of St. Louis, said the best things, and I'm gonna ruin it, but I'm gonna try to paraphrase it. He said, a white helmet and a plane ticket makes you an expert, but a
No
white
kidding,
helmet
right?
within 5 miles, you're an idiot you
It's
know
true.
so it's the same message, the same person, same
Hmm.
experience, but there's something about that. You're just not a prophet in your own country. Do you, or have you experienced that in either one of your departments?
Oh, of course. Of course. And ironically enough, here in what we would call the 850 area code, like me and my brother do the
Hmm.
850 thing. We're not that
Yeah.
great at it. It was a regional thing. It's just more or less a representation, right, of where we are from. So in relation to that, I would even suggest, like,
Hmm.
in the 850 area, because of all the opportunity, you have not as much local engagement. I mean, you do and you don't. It's a weird thing. So it's very true. You are never an expert in your own backyard, nor do I exclaim to be, or any of us
Hmm.
for that matter exclaim to be. But I think what's different in my mind, and that's allowed me, because I share my message about my class and the call, a couple other calls locally here too that tie into the program that I share. Um, I share locally all the time. In fact, tomorrow I'm going over to a place called Marianna, Florida, about an hour and a half from me, to Volunteer Firefighter Association, just to share the program. Because you know what, like, just for nothing, just for free, because if they want to hear the message, I'm going to share it. The county north of where I work in a place called South Walton Fire District right now,
Hmm.
which, if you're familiar with Florida and the Panhandle, it's the 30A stretch. Very wealthy, very bougie area, beautiful beaches. It's just phenomenal. Well, north of there is North Walton Fire Rescue. That's like a neighboring department. I did 20 years part time up there. I got my roots in that organization. Long story short, now that I'm in the mutual aid organization, we're sharing resources, and they're asking me to come share my story. Just, you know, 20 minutes from where I'm at. And I feel like if you're able to do that locally and people are still willing to hear your message, you're doing something right, you're communicating right. Because one of the things that people do like us is we're so passionate about something, we tend to alienate people, don't we? Like our opinions are so strong and we say so
Yes.
much, we're driving people away. Well, my goal, I don't want, I've experienced that. I've watched other people do that in my orbit around me. I've watched mentors of mine do that on a social media level. The goal is to bring people in. You can't bring them all, but the goal is to bring people in. That's what coaches do. Coaches
Mhm.
rally people, they rally a team. That's what I want to be. And so you're right. You're never an expert in your own backyard. In the city of Fort Walton, where I used to work, certainly not. Nobody could care to hear what I'm saying, but even regionally, I like to think that I've worked hard to change a negative perception of me or even my brother, because we have some roots in the fire service with our dad working, and he was a polarizing character. We've both worked hard to change that and to try to bring more people with us. Because the point is
Mhm.
that all of these fire conferences we go to, these podcasts that people listen to, we want to share it and we want people to come into the fold. It's like preaching the gospel, right? It's like going to church. When you're at church, they're like, "Hey man, just bring a friend with you. Bring a friend." That's what I'm trying to do. Bring a friend. And I joke with guys like my brother. I joke with guys like Kurt, specifically Kurt. I call him a fire service preacher because he's just that dynamic speaker, right?
Oh
Um,
my God, yes.
but a, but a, I didn't coin the phrase, but I heard it said somewhere, it's the gospel of fire. That's what we're doing. You know,
Mhm.
uh, my brother, we've been traveling and teaching a little bit, which is super cool. And that's what I'm saying. That's what we're going to do. I even put it, we have this email system where I work. It's called an out of office email. It just goes to all the administrative staff and the chiefs. And basically, I sent an email out recently, and I'm kind of new. I'm 6 months deep into this organization. I know people, but you know what I'm saying. Like I'm getting to know them. So I
Mhm.
took off to go to St. Louis. We had pre-planned this trip to St. Louis and to Oklahoma recently, to Brian Brush's area and Corley Moore's area, which was
Yeah.
crazy. So yeah, it was an Oklahoma trip. I did this on both of them. So I sent an
Right.
email out of office email to everybody, and out of office this date, uh, out of town, and then in the content of the email, I said I'm going to preach the gospel of fire in this city. I'll be back on this date. And I say that on purpose because I want people to understand, like it's an honor and an opportunity to be able to go out and share, and to be able to go out and
Yeah.
speak and share a story, hopefully inspiring people. That's the whole point. We want to bring more people into the fold. We want to bring more
Yeah.
people into not just showing up five till apathy sets in because of an organizational issue, or most of the time a human relations issue, i.e. a leader officer making your job
Hmm.
terrible, back to, hey, why did you even sign up in the first place? Why are you here? That's the first thing I ask guys when they come through. I'm about to do another new hire academy in a month. The first question is, why South Walton? Why this organization? And I know some of their answers, but I'm going to make sure to remind them, and I remind my organization often that, um, one, what brought you to the service? Was it serving others? Was it the exhilarating feeling of bringing something out of control under control? Was it a combination of the stuff? Never forget that thing. Regardless of the
Right.
organization and the things that are out of control around you, you have to hone back into that thing, because that's what's going to carry you through those valleys of the job. And anybody with more than 6 years in the job probably has experienced that,
Right.
especially if it's a poor organization that you're a part of.
It's funny. I've been part of a couple of like hiring boards, recruiting boards, and stuff like that. And it's amazing that when I came in the fire service about 30 years ago, and talking to my brothers and sisters, like going through it together, and why they joined versus what I'm hearing today or 5 years ago
Hmm.
is incredible. Um, they're so different. I mean, I think now there are. I 20 years ago, I would have faulted you for saying, well, you all pay very well.
Hmm.
If that's your first, why you want to be a firefighter. 20 years ago,
Sure.
absolutely not. You can't get out. You're not there. But today,
Hmm.
with trying to understand generational awareness and all that and the economy, I kind of understand that as long as they followed up with the right stuff. And unfortunately, you don't
Yeah.
hear all the time. I will tell you the worst
Yeah.
thing I heard many years ago, and this is no joke. This was early 2000s, and a guy said, "Why do you want to be a firefighter?" And he said, and I quote, and I'll never forget it, because it's always been a dream of mine to die in a fire. How'd you like to be on that
What?
gas truck?
What kind of
Yeah.
what kind of answer is
Yep.
that? Like,
That was a first. Dude, he
huh.
practiced the answer. You could tell because he didn't think about it. He was like ready for that question. Well, it's always been my dream to die in a fire. I'm like, holy shit. You are definitely
Wow.
caught material.
No, I don't get that. I would have been like, I got nothing. I don't
Oh,
know what to tell you, but we're not going to die. I don't know what to tell you though. Like, if you want to die,
all
maybe
of us
go
looked at
to
each
the
other
Navy
and we were
department.
supposed to be super I'm getting a little I'm getting a yeah. Let me give you an application for this place. I've always wondered what the heck he has
That's
done since
crazy.
then. Oh, I know. It is. And uh
What's a
it is
hero
so weird.
complex?
Well, it was after 2000. It was after 9/11 too. It was like one of the first
Yeah.
things after 9/11. And if you weren't a firefighter before, you got a weird idea of what the fire service is like because of
Hmm.
some of it's good, some of it's
Hmm.
bad. But
Yeah.
you did. There was an influx of people that thought, that's that. So yeah, yeah.
Well,
And
you know
then
what I think it
I've had
comes back to? Here's what
what's
I
that?
think it comes back to with people is everybody wants to belong to something bigger than themselves. I'm convinced of that. Everybody. We
Yeah.
all feed our egos in different ways. And
Mhm.
not that it's an ego feeding thing, but it kind of is by peripheral through purpose. So there's no greater purpose, in my opinion. There's no job greater than the service that we get to do as
Yes,
firefighters.
sir.
And it's not a cheesy thing, but I really believe that. And so I think that's what people, whether they know that or not, like, I want to die in a fire. Well, what he's trying to say is, I want to be in part of something bigger than me, right?
Right.
And next to a religious affiliation, your faith may be driving you to be a part of something eternal. This is the
Mhm.
next best thing on the earth, at least in
Yep.
my opinion. And my story to this job is I wasn't looking for it. I grew up in it. My dad was a deputy operations chief, and my parents were divorced. I literally grew up going to fires with him in his car at like 10, 11, 12 years old, responding across town to working fires and these incidents because I was with him. And he's like, hey, you want to go? Of course I want to go. I aged up and I'm like, nah, I like to play music. I like to surf. I like to do these things. That's not my gig. Because at the time, my brother transitioned into the job at 19 years old, and I'm 5 years younger than him. And I said, no, that's you and my brother. That's y'all's thing. I don't want to do that. And then, long story short, music didn't pan out. Surfing doesn't pay bills. I got married. My wife got pregnant before she finished nursing school because there was a plan. And it sort of, I got my EMT as a means to an end. I was working on an ambulance in Walton County. And and I'm going off on a trail here, but just to give you a little bit of
No,
backstory, like
no, you're fine,
that's what
brother.
propelled me into the job. But I look at it like this: it's a calling for me. I don't know about for everyone else, maybe listening or watching. Maybe it is for them, but if it's not, it really is if the thing that drives you to here is that purpose, the bigger purpose. And I didn't
Right.
realize that until I got on the job. It's the weirdest thing. And then I look back and go, phew, man, thank thankful for God's plan on this one because I had no plan. And I landed into a job that to this day, some days are better than others, but I like to go to work. That's a
Yep.
big deal. We get to like to go to work for the most part and enjoy it. There's a lot of people grinding who hate their lives. And I
Yes.
contend in this, and I'll stop breathing after this one, like talking so much. But here's the deal. If you can make that connection between what you're passionate about and getting a paycheck, you've hit the lottery, right?
Oh
That's my
yeah.
opinion about it. So when I've advised my daughters, I have two daughters, and I'm proud to say they're both nurses. They're both in the community service field, and I told them, hey, if it doesn't work, it's not about money.
Mhm.
You do have to make a living and support yourself, but you get jobs that are called means to an end to find the thing you're passionate about. Because if
Right.
not, if you hate your job, you hate your career, even if you're a firefighter and you just hate it, get out because you're 80% of our life. is working to provide to live, you know? Why
Yep.
waste? You don't buy days back. You don't get time back. Seconds leave to never return, and we're marching towards death. Hey, there's your positive quote of the day, right? But it's
We're
true. It's
marching towards death.
yes, yes. So think about that. Why are we wasting our time doing jobs and things we hate? Man,
Right.
risk it a little bit. If firefighting, let's say, is not the thing, and it's not the thing for everybody. I love what Miami-Dade Training Division says, T-safe, right?
T
We're gonna
safe.
T-safe. This shit
This shit
ain't
ain't
for
for everyone.
everybody. And that is the truth. And
Yeah.
I say it in my department, you know. So if it's not clicking, go find something that does, and that's okay. It's okay.
Hmm.
I told my girls about the fire service, and they're like, "Yeah, no, I don't think so, Dad." And I'm like, "Okay, that's fine. Go find something you're passionate about. If it doesn't work out, work that job until you can find the other thing that does. It's as simple as that."
That's exactly right. I've always said on this podcast that I feel bad for astronauts and fighter pilots because they don't get to do what we do. We have the best job in the world. And with, yeah,
Yeah, it's
right.
pretty cool.
And
No.
with that comes the highest responsibility. And I think the
Yeah.
passion for the job happens, the real passion happens when you realize where you fit in. When you realize that your
Yeah.
job is the number one thing. It's not, and this is where I might get, let me explain this all the way before I get some pushback. I don't think our job is keeping our crews safe. I don't think that's a priority.
Hmm.
I think our job is keeping our community safe. That is our priority. Now,
Yeah.
if we do that right, our crew's automatically safe because if you once you realize that your job is like the community, then you're going to train hard. You're going to work hard
Yep.
with your crew. You're going to
I agree.
learn. And so I always say that. And you know, my department, my training office, I was a training officer. Recently retired. I'm selling the books, burning up my PTO, but I'm retired now. But
Good
I
for
had this
you, man.
big, oh, dude, it's great.
That's exciting. Exciting.
Run, don't walk is
Yeah.
all I can. Well,
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
you went straight back into
Yeah.
another training job. But
Yeah.
it's nice to have to work on my passion projects and stuff. But I look at it and I'm like, you know, I I would look at my glass window and I would see all these cars. Like right across from my street was a Walmart. There was a park, a community park right there. There was a bunch of little
Hmm.
stores, and I could see all these cars on this main road every day going to work. And one day it clicked. I'm like, every single person somehow, some way thinks that if they get into trouble, we're going to get them. I don't care
Yeah.
what it is. They
Hmm.
can get worst car wreck. They could
Hmm.
get their private parts caught in a toaster. It doesn't. Whatever they come up with, it's our job to fix it. I know, right? To be fair, I was just curious about
Uh,
the toaster. It said bagel slot. Anyway, I'm not going to get into that.
strong
Um,
analogy. Strong analogy.
but it hit me. I'm like, oh my God, that's my responsibility. I'm not
Yeah.
living up to what they
Yeah.
probably think we should be doing. So that really was
Yeah.
a turning point for me. But with that, I
So
wasn't
true.
destined to be a fireman either. I fell into it.
Yeah.
And so I
Yeah.
really I can understand what you're saying is, you know, it
Hmm.
doesn't mean that it's not my passion and my vocation, what I've meant to do. I think it totally is. But no, that's
Sure.
not. Uncle Sam made me a fireman, and
Yeah.
that was it.
Some people know early on, like, I'll play with fire trucks forever. I mean, I did too, but like you stumble into it. But I think a lot of
Mhm.
people who stumble into this career and end up loving it, there's a sense of gratefulness that's attached to
Mhm.
that. Like they're just grateful for the moment. Not all moments are great, but they're grateful for the opportunity. You know, the whole thing like, thank you for your service to the public and all that. And my response to
Yeah,
that to people is, man, I'm just grateful to be able to be healthy enough to still do the job. Simple as that.
yeah,
You know, I'm
yep,
glad I'm here. And you talk about the connection between the serving the public, and that's one of the things my brother does in a leadership class is the whole size yourself up with your children concept, meaning
yep,
that like, are you ready to turn out and save your own kids? The what if? Okay, so what if it's your kids that are now trapped? My program that I teach, the first call was a call of a 10-year-old boy trapped on the second floor of a row townhome in the middle of the day, and his mom was out front. It was confirmed. She told us exactly where he was at. And the cops tried to make a push. The first arriving battalion chief from the neighboring department tried to make a push because it was just that intense of a moment. Nobody else could do it. Nobody. And that's what I
Mhm.
start the program off with. And it sounds dramatic, and people are like, oh, you're just being dramatic. They say that because they're not going to a lot of fires. None of us in
Mhm.
suburban America, well, maybe with the exception of Escambia in our area, they go to a lot of work, but most apartments aren't going to a lot of fires, so they downplay that dramatic moment. But
Right.
ironically enough, the one thing the public expects you and me and everybody listening to be an expert at, they think we're experts. They
Right.
assume we're experts when we arrive to solve their problems. But little do they know, expert's a strong word,
Yeah.
and depending on the company and the day and the shift and the city or the town or wherever you're at, it's a mixed bag what you're going to get.
Yep.
So well intentions do not save lives.
I've looked back.
Well-intended firefighters do not save lives.
No, no, no. I have gone into a fire more than once where we're moving a line in, relieving a crew inside, whatever it is. And I've looked back at my RIT team and I've
Mm.
seen three people equaling at least 900 pounds. And
Oh,
none of them have anything. I mean, they're just sitting there talking to each other. And I remember
yeah.
clearly right before I breached that door or,
Hmm.
went in there, looking back going, I'm on my own, you know,
Yeah.
and
100%.
it's tough, but it goes back to what you're saying. You sometimes you don't have those experts and you don't have those people
Mm-mm.
that care like we do. Now, I've heard people say, well, nobody has to care like you. And I push back on that because and I've been both. I've been a bag of shit on the job. I've come to work self entitled. The city
Mm-hmm.
owes me and they're lucky to have
Mm-hmm.
me. I'm not doing any
Yep.
training. I've
Right.
been that guy. So I feel like I can speak pretty clearly on it. And,
Mm-hmm.
when you decide that you're going to serve the community. Don't serve
Yeah.
yourself, serve your
Yeah.
community. And
Mm-hmm.
everything that you do, everything that you say has to be when you're at work, it should be, hey, is this the best for my citizens? If it's not, don't do it. Don't do it.
Mm-hmm.
And it's, I I want to talk to you about this anyway, but and this is a great transition into that, but it
Yep.
does come to my mind talking about it. Here's one of my things that I hate as a training officer. Now, my disclaimer is I'm sure I've done it. I know I've done it. And
Mm-hmm.
again, bag of shit moment. I cannot stand people not wearing their gear correctly. I can't. It
Yeah.
drives me
Me
up a
too.
wall because the
Yes.
the one is I want to end up talking about SCBA masks because I think we're on the same
Yeah.
page with that. But
Yeah.
what kills me is the waist strap on your SCBA,
Oh,
right? I
it's the
try to fix it all
worst.
the time. It is the worst. And I'm like, why would you bring an entanglement hazard into the fire scene? Why would you potentially bring a victim to the fire scene? It doesn't make sense to me.
It's cool. It's cool though, man. It looks cool in pictures, man. So,
If I had to be honest with myself when I did it, I was trying to emulate the cool kids,
Oh
right?
yeah, of course we
And
all are.
I remember if you look at a brand new recruit and they've got their ear flaps down, they got their
Mm-hmm.
gauntlets on, they're dressed the correct way, their throat tab, you
Mm-hmm.
can tell a new guy from the way they're dressed. And then you look
Mm-hmm.
at the old salty guy and you're like, oh, that guy's cool. So what do? You push up your gauntlet. You don't wear them, you don't wear your hood.
Mm-hmm.
So I think you're right. I think that's what it is. I think that's ego. But again, does that serve your community? No, it doesn't.
No,
It absolutely doesn't
no.
serve your community.
And I'll take it a step further. So you're 30 years deep, came in late 90s probably, right? Mid
Mm-hmm.
90s,
Mid
late
90s. Yeah.
90s or so. None of us serving today and retiring, nobody comes from this salty, hip boot wearing, no hood. It's a farce. It's a
Yep.
farce. So I'm passionate about this, and it frustrates me because we know better. We
Mm-hmm.
know better. You're not
Yep.
coming unless your workplace like Chicago, where I think they transitioned out of hip boots in the 90s. But
Yeah.
even then, it was like the mid 90s, if I recall correctly. Some
Yeah.
stragglers through the late 90s, early O's, because it's a giant department. But for the most part, guys like my dad wore hip boots. Guys like my dad rode tailboard in the 70s and the 80s. Guys like my dad didn't wear hoods and said, I wanted to feel the fire on my ears. Talk to some guys about in Houston about
Oh,
hoods. They
what is it?
changed the
Clyde Reed? The Reed
yes,
hood? Yeah.
Reed. He
Yeah.
changed our business. Talk about a needle pusher
Hmm.
that is kind of well known to the nerddom like us, but
Hmm.
his name should be known everywhere in the fire business because he in a very high to this day, fire volume duty department. That guy said, we need better. We should do better. So I listen to guys like that. I
Well,
don't,
wait a minute. He's a good and a bad example, right? I mean, have you seen the pictures where he's
well,
lighting fires in like a Hawaiian shirt?
yes, yes, this is true. This is true. But I mean, think about the bias that a guy like that with that much experience has to overcome to sort
Yeah,
of change tune
yeah,
up, kind of upstream from culture.
yeah.
That's a
And that's a
challenge.
bold man. That's a bold man to do the stuff one way, realizing it needs to be better, and then not only changing, but changing
Hmm.
yourself, your department, and then again taking it long. I mean, I was in Pearland last year, and Jacob Johnson showed me a reed hood. He showed me the old because he was telling me about it. I'm like, oh, that sounds
Hmm.
horrible. He goes, oh,
Hmm.
you got to see it, and he brought it to
Yeah.
me. I was like, oh man, Houston's very very different on gear and stuff like that.
Yes.
Uh, and but when people talk about it in the negative, I'm like, think about this. They put their citizens first. They
Yeah.
really they go for their taking care of their citizens. But
No, no,
the
no doubt about it. But there's no excuse. I don't think there's any excuses for a couple things with PPE these days. There's no excuses not wearing things that are appropriate. We have the
Mhm.
knowledge. There's no ignorance is not an excuse. Like you can't break the law and say I didn't know it. No, you're still going to get a ticket or arrested. Yeah,
Yeah.
ignorance is not an excuse, and it's what my brother likes to say. It's a predictable domino. That is
Mhm.
one domino that's going to fall. That if I just tied my waist strap in, which better supports the pack so I can have longevity of work time. If I just
Mhm.
stayed on air after we got a knock and we're doing overhaul, air is
Yes,
free. Like, I don't get it.
bro.
Keep your hood up while you're doing overhaul. Oh, well, it's
Mhm.
hot. It's hot anyways. Like,
Yeah.
these are these things that I'm like, if you need a break, then say you need a break. But don't not do the things that we know that keep ourselves healthy on the job. And when it comes to masking up, ironically enough, what kind of brought this to my attention, and it's not popular. What I'm about to share, it's not popular, and it's
Mhm.
very debatable. And I'm not saying it's right or wrong, but what I'm
I
saying
bet I know
is,
where you're going with this. I
yep,
love it already.
I'll tell you this: if I was back on a rig riding a truck, I would do this 100% of the time. So I go to Houston. I'm sharing part of my program is Mask Up Times. It's awesome regionally, nationally, across the world. Mask Up Times are being focused on is very important.
Mhm.
So I'm talking about, hey, we need to work on this. We could do it with gloves on. You get down 10 seconds, blah, blah, blah. So during the program, one of the Houston guys raises his hands and and, or it was the suburban department around Houston. Houston's included in this for the
Right.
most part. He says, hey, we, we don't really have that issue. We mask up on the truck before we get off the rig if we know we're going to work.
Right.
And I went, okay. And basically, I think it was Kyle Romagus says, yeah, we have a mask up time of 0 seconds. And I went,
Yeah.
huh, you know what? You're right. But here's the caveat. So always and never, we don't use that a lot. It's
Right.
the fire service wants black or they want white. They want
Mhm.
an answer. Well, here's the problem. We work in the gray. There ain't nothing black and white about our job, operationally speaking. So in light of that, I will say that I fully advocate masking up for one or two reasons. Number one, you round the corner. Here's the caveat: you're first due. That's it. You're first due. My brother don't even agree with me on this, but I'm just this is how I feel about it. If you're first due to a working fire, mask up on the rig, turn
Mhm.
everything on, all your lights, all your radios, confirm everybody's on the right channel, have all your tools set and everything ready to click in and go because you're going to do one of two things. It's not rocket science. We are overcomplicating our job for whatever reason. You're going to probably put the fire out, or you're probably going to make a grab and do a rescue. That's it. Nothing else. But what, I can't see the whole scene. I can't do this. My size up. I'm like, is your mask gray or something? Because I see straight through my mask, number one.
Yeah.
Number two, if it fogs up, well, there's a cure for that. You know, Captain Jenkins from Houston has a great video on how to defog your mask and it not fog up on you so you can see out of it. Um,
Right.
the other excuse is, well, I like to see the whole scene and take it in. I'm like, you're task driven. What more do you have to see? Locate, confine, extinguish, search, rescue.
Right.
That's simple. So I'm passionate about it because that cuts down our reflex time to near zero. So when you step off the truck and someone says, hey, they're over here, cool, click in, go to work.
Hmm.
Gloves are
Yep.
on, everything is on, right? Um, if your mask does fog up, click in and breathe air in the yard. Air
Yep.
is free. It might
Air's
reduce your
free.
work time, but not a whole lot. So
Mm-mm.
car fires, that's my main debate when people say that. Well, I don't like putting a mask on, blah, blah. I said, okay, so you go to a car fire and you round the corner. Do you guys mask up on your truck? Oh yeah, every time we mask up. Every time. And I go, okay, so what's different about a house on fire now? Now, of course, circumstance is going to drive this most of the time. But if you know you turn the corner, you got a header, you know you're going to work and you're the first one there, the answer isn't why. I contend, well, why would you not do it? Justify why you wouldn't do it, not why you would not do it. And then in that justification, self justification, take your ego and put it on a shelf. No more, I've been doing this for X many years. No more than, well, I've seen this. Well, my mentor so and so says this. This guy goes to more jobs and he says that. No, think about you and think
Hmm.
about why would you not do that?
Right.
Um, that's the caveat. It's not every single time. Just when you're first due, I'm a
Yeah.
strong advocate for that. Whether you're maybe even second due, if you know that you're going to go to work as a search, like where we're at, where I work now and where I worked before is very much a sequence of arrival work. So you know that
Mm.
if you're second due, as an example, you're going to come in, you're going to do a booster backup and drop your tank to the first truck. If you lay in, that's a rare occasion. Typically,
Booster
the
backup.
third
That
would
is
lay
Kurt
in.
Isaacson area there, isn't it?
100%. We all do this. So, one of two things going to happen. You're going to help the line advance into the building, or you're going to do a search, or you might vent. All three of those, you need to
Mhm.
be on air and you need to have your PPE on. If you're
Right.
trying to do tactical safety, that's tactical safety, is being ready.
Mhm.
So that's my preach on that. And I think sometimes we make excuses not to wear our stuff right, and we make excuses to not maybe be ready to work as soon as you step off the rig. Because the dudes who do it, they have extensive data backing on why it works for them and works well. And they're typically very fast at extinguishing fires. Because if you want to prevent RIT, you want to make a better rescue, you want to do anything on the fire ground, including truck work, put the fire out.
Yeah.
Simple as that. That's our
That
mission: fires
I've
and
always
rescue.
said that for if you go from the day of Ben Franklin to today, you look at fire trucks, from horses to fire trucks, just fire trucks, it's changed a ton. Gear has changed a ton.
Yeah,
Everything's changed a ton. But the one thing that hasn't changed and never will change is quick water on the fire makes everything better.
that's it.
I don't. You don't even have to argue pro bar, no bar. You have to do none of that stuff. It's
No,
just that, and if you focus on that as your main objective, everything else supports that. Everything else supports that. That water's got to get on the fire. It's got to get on quick.
mm-hmm.
But so it's almost like you've listened to all my podcasts because you've listened to all my gripes. One is ego. I've
Yeah,
been kicking it around. I need to do it. I want to make a sticker for 3 Point Firefighter. It's a thumbprint and put it on your water bottle. And the idea is when you find yourself talking in a way that doesn't support the citizens, only supports you, you put your thumb on that sticker and it removes your
it's
ego.
good.
That
That's
it's
good.
just so it brings it to front. Yeah, because if you ask anybody
Mm-hmm.
about not wearing their mask when they get off, you ask anybody about not doing a 360, it's all the answer almost always is themselves. Well, I can't see or I can't do.
Yep,
Then you need to
yep.
practice like that. So I went
Mm-hmm.
from the military, the United States Air Force as a firefighter, and I went to Lexington, Kentucky for 7 years. Now, Lexington, anybody listens to the podcast knows I love that department. Why did I leave? I got to see my kids up here. So that's the
Yeah,
short story. Now,
sure.
they taught me early on. I had a guy, and I've talked about him a little bit on here, Greg Stapleton. He's now retired. Excellent captain, and he was my first captain. He
Mm-hmm.
taught me. He made it really easy. He goes, "Look, if we got a job, put your mask on. Go to work with your
Yeah,
mask on. You
yeah.
you can breathe your hook in your air right before you go in." But he was very citizen oriented, and I'm talking about the '90s. He was that
Awesome.
way. Fantastic. And it was like, hey, if you got to go upstairs around the back, pull the big line in the back. I mean, that was
That's
it,
it.
right?
Yeah.
So we did that, and
Keeping
it
it
worked
simple.
great. Yeah, exactly. Then I move up here to New Albany, and I started doing that, and they would look at me like I was an idiot, like my head screwed on and off. And here's where I failed. This is my failure. I let them talk me out of doing the right thing.
Mm-hmm.
So I quit doing it.
Mm.
Um, I got yelled at for jumping off a truck to back them in the firehouse. They yelled at me for that. And I was like, now this was 20 years ago. I
Right.
was like, wow. So
Yeah.
it wasn't till I, got little balls that I started doing the right thing. I've
Hmm.
even had a captain say, middle of the night, oh, you don't have to wear all your stuff. This is actually a pretty funny story. I'll tell you this.
Hmm.
He would say, oh, you don't have to wear your stuff. We come here all the time. And so he would jump off with his turnout pants in the middle of the night and a set of keys. That was it.
Yeah.
So I would jump off with everything. Now I wouldn't have my mask on. It was a smells and bells, no fire,
Right.
and I would have
Of
a
course
water
not.
can, and I'd have that. Matter of fact, I have one of the old ticks, those great big ones around me.
Yep.
I was ready to go to work, bro. And he'd
Yep.
say, "Oh, you can take all that stuff off," and I'd say, "Oh, okay." And he would start walking to the building, and I would just follow behind him. And
Yeah.
I thought I told you to take that stuff off. I'm like, okay. So it became a little joke. And
Yeah.
finally, he got serious with me at the firehouse one night after I did that. He goes, when I tell you to do something, I expect you to do it. And I
Hmm.
was confused at first. I was like, what are you talking about? He goes, I told you when we make these runs at night, you don't have to wear all that stuff. It's going to slow you
Hmm.
down.
Hmm.
And I said, look, my health and safety is my job. It's not yours.
It's
Right.
good.
Let me take care of me.
Yeah.
And he understood, and we didn't have any problems. I loved working with the guy. He would tell me to grab the booster line, and I'd say,
Hmm.
yes, sir. And I'd grab the pre-connect every time. Finally, he got to the point. He goes,
Yeah.
we'd see a header, and he'd go, I know you're just going to do what you want to do, so just do it. I'm
Yeah.
like, all
Yep.
right,
That's right.
gotcha, Cap.
Yep.
But that's what it comes down to is
Yeah.
I was afraid to step up and do the right thing, even though I knew it. I
Hmm.
finally got the nuts to say, you know what, this is me. And we need our gear. It's called an ensemble. They
Yeah.
show me where it says anywhere that for this situation, only wear your coat. For this situation, only
Right.
wear your gloves. And it drives me nuts. So I'm a huge advocate for that. And coming off with your mask, it's just if you're first in, when you're
Hmm.
on a car fire, you want to talk about filthy freaking stuff. Car fires are
Oh,
horrible. If you ever smelt a
yeah.
battery on fire that's kind of open, dude, that is
Yeah.
like the worst.
You don't want
Why
to breathe
people don't
any
do
of
it?
that.
You don't. What? And that's another
Hmm.
thing. If you ask any firefighter, "Hey, would you like to die of cancer?" and they'd go, "No." Okay, so you're going to do
Yeah.
everything you can to prevent it. Yes.
Right.
Okay, so back to what you said earlier, I'm a huge proponent of wearing your air pack in overhaul, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely.
And people are like, "No, it's too heavy, it's too cumbersome." Again, they're the waist strap people too. That if you put your waist
Yep.
strap on, it's a little bit easier.
Hmm.
But I've gotten more pushback, and I retired earlier than I planned because I felt like my morals and ethics did not align with the current way things are being done.
Yep. Hmm.
And one of the things I try to implement for the past year and a half was more of I've tried to do it for a while, but now really cancer prevention.
Yeah.
And I cannot get anybody on board. They all say, they're like, well, we got to do something. I'm like, you don't have to do any research. Type up a policy today. It says, wear your air pack on overhaul all the time.
All the
And
time.
I even said, look, let's go one step further. You're breaking law. OSHA tells you to wear a
Hmm.
respirator according to the IDLH.
Yeah.
To me, it's simple stuff. It is simple stuff, and there's no reason for us to suffer. There's no reason for us to. We already are cool. We don't got to look cool. We're firefighters. We're not
Yeah.
cops. They got to work at looking cool. We don't.
Well, it just bumps up against, you're right. It just bumps up against people's egos and their perceptions.
Mhm.
And our business is so hard to push change. And not to go on a rabbit trail, but there is a connection here. If you look at what Ray McCormick and Dennis are doing with the hen nozzle right now,
Mhm.
if it was if it was for me and you, we would have been stuffed in a closet a long time ago. But you're talking two
Right.
veterans of the fire service, like who are changing, literally changing stuff in the fire service. They bring this idea forward. And for whatever reason, the whole community of firefighting is like, well, I don't know about this, right? It's very apprehensive. And I've looked at it. I've had the pleasure of flowing this nozzle and understanding it a little bit better. It's a game changer, man. And I'm not just saying that. Ask Kyle Romigus. Listen to some
Right.
of the interviews that he's had on his experiences. I talked to him right after he did the live burn. He said it murdered the fire. And this is a guy that Kyle's been to a fire or two in his career. He is probably the foremost in my opinion, engine guy on our job right now. You know what I mean? Just like on a
Yeah.
nerd level. And
Yeah.
so when he makes that statement, I listen. And when guys like Ray say, hey, there's something to it, I listen. And when guys like Dennis say it, I listen. And they're not just saying it because it's a newfangled thing. It's not because it's a fog nozzle variation, but it's simply a pattern change. But so much of us in the fire service don't want to let go of our bias and our
Yeah.
view and our perspective because somehow or another that's part of some identity of rightness. I don't know what it is with people, but
Hmm.
the fact about the hand nozzle, it is putting the same water in the space, making the job easier, faster, more efficient, period. And I'm not a
Yep.
salesman. I just know that's the facts coming out that are slowly starting to unfold right now. In relation to that, there's resistance. There's resistance to what you're talking about with cancer stuff, with getting off the truck with our mask to go to work faster. And we are our own worst enemy sometimes
Oh my God,
because
yes.
the job is made up of type A and ultra type A's. And then now on the internet, you have a whole nother version of type A and know it all that exists,
Social media
and
warriors.
yes, yes, and I'll just repeat something I put on social media the other day and I shared it to 850 this morning. Is basically this. It's our job to get inside of a structure fast. And I say that because I was listening, I don't know where I heard it, but recently I heard the analogy of someone can only hold their breath so long. Like
Yeah.
your reflex time to get off and stretch a line to the door and to get inside, somebody may be holding their breath for that moment of time. So the
Mhm.
point is, the citizen can only hold their breath for so long. Nobody else is going to do this. It's me and you. It's us. When that truck arrives, you are the last option to put the fire out, to make an effective positive change on a rescue, period. And we have to be fast at that. So putting a mask on average takes 30 if you're decent, 45 to a minute. That's a long time. Hold your breath for a minute. How long is
Yep.
that? The surf was really big the other day here on the Gulf. We get some decent sized waves. I got held under and spun up and down a couple times underneath a wave, and I
Hmm.
thought I was holding my breath for a minute. It was like maybe 7 seconds, but it felt like an eternity because of the situation I was in. Now, put that on a citizen for real. Like their house is burning down, they can't breathe, and we're dicking around with putting a mask on
Yep.
when we know better. We know better. So I don't know how this will be received, but I agree with you. I love the thumbprint thing. We need to kind of forego our ego a little bit and start looking at, hey, what makes our job faster, easier, more efficient to get to the end product?
Hmm.
I could go on all kinds of trails and really piss a lot of people off when it comes to gallon flow and a lot of this out of efficiency, but I won't
Hmm.
because it's a whole nother conversation that I'm not ready to really put out there yet. But um, I think we need
Oh,
to
I got to
reevaluate
have
our
you back
job for
then because I
efficiency.
would love that conversation. I love that. So I know
I
we're not
don't
going to do it
know.
now, but
You you might not agree with me, man. So I'll drop a little, and we may be able to talk in person about this at some point in the future, but no,
FDIC, brother.
it has to do with smaller handline attack packages
Uh-huh.
and a little bit less GPM threshold for attack.
What type of nozzle?
So same nozzles we're using now.
Solid
Okay, so
bores, smooth bore.
here's what I'm saying. Yeah, I'm very much a smoothbore guy. Like I think yes, I would have one fog nozzle on the vehicle just as an option if it was
Mm-hmm.
mine to have. But I believe in the simplicity of the solid bore nozzle for various reasons. But I think that's the biggest win because you can't mess it up.
Right.
So what's been marinating in my mind, and I'm going to piss a lot of people off, and I get it. I, I'm nobody, but this is just my opinion from a minimum
Okay.
staff standpoint. I did an experiment a couple years ago at H-Rock with the 150 flow out of an inch and a half line.
Mm-hmm.
Key makes a line that is capable of that, and we did it. 100% we did it. I had Brush out there, Kyle, Ray, McCormick, Steve Robertson. I had all the guys from Elkhart, Stretch,
Cool.
and all these guys out there assembled in this sort of private party evaluation because everybody wanted to see it. Here's the deal. Even Key was there. Mark and Joey from Key were there. So we had like this class amongst instructors, right? It was awesome. Long story short, yes, it can be done, but it's unruly and out of control. Like it's too much of a line. It's too much on the bite end of the hose. And Dennis
Okay.
told me this beforehand, but he's like, man, I want you to go down the road because I've been trying for years. Got it. So after that, some of the studies started coming out about rescue stuff, FSRI, about how much water it takes to put a fire out. We've all seen it. That
Hmm.
can be interpreted in many different ways. Um, and what's compelling to me was the volume and amount of gallonage to put these fires out was not what I once thought it was. Because, and I'm not saying it's wrong, but I've been told my whole career, uh, what's the saying? BTU,
You got to have more GPMs and BTUs.
GPM to BTU. I've heard
Yeah.
that too my whole life, and I don't disagree with it. There is a breakover, but what I'm contending is, and the question I have for the American Fire Service is, are is it overkill? Because since I came in the business, 200 GPM, 180 was the threshold. Now
Right.
we've bumped down to 160. Two things. One, we didn't need the excess water. It was just culturally agreed. Number two, the nozzle reaction was a big player. We realized that. Minimum staff companies, lesser firefighters are having a hard time holding on that nozzle. So they're half bailing, or they're not fully opening, or they're changing the pattern, or whatever it takes.
Yep. Right.
So I say, in light of that, 160 GPM is the gold standard. 150, I think, is the recommendation per NFPA, right? Split. The lines are split. It's understood that it's 150, but it's not stated 150. But the
Hmm.
overall GPM being, was it 300 or something like that? Yeah. 150 is the assumption, minimal. Now, mind you, when you came in, 95 gallons, 110 was probably the rule, putting a lot of
Yeah.
fires out. Okay,
Yeah.
so
100, 110.
I'm laying the foundation, so you get all that. Man, I'm gonna get killed about this, but anyways, I contend and I question and I go, can the threshold be lowered to 130? Because what we did discover that day is with the same nozzles on the same hose from Key, the inch and a half combat ready, I could easily flow 130 and it felt great in my hands. And guess what? The hose was very manageable because it was smaller. There's a sense
Right.
of confidence when smaller people can get their hands around the hose. It's more sense of control. There's a mental aspect, number one. Number two, there is a slight weight difference. We're flowing a little less water, so two things are happening, and I would have to validate the nozzle reaction, but we're getting a less nozzle reaction, so it's easier
Hmm.
to handle, and it's
Hmm.
easier to put the water where it needs to go. The hose package is a little bit lighter, more uh, efficient to move because you can get your hands around it and move more of length because of
Hmm.
weight faster,
Yep.
right? So with those two concepts in mind, my question is, why not? Why can't we do, well, it's just unsafe, it's unsafe, it's unsafe. And I go, okay, so there's this department called Washington, D.C. They call them DCFD,
I
and they
know
go through a
exactly what you're going to
lot
say. Inch and a
of
half attack packages.
fires. But their inch and a half, as I understand it,
Yep.
I could be wrong, is in the 130 range. That was their target package when they redid, because DC didn't want
Yep.
to go away from inch and a half. Now, I'm not saying that's the
Yep.
answer, but what I'm saying is, here's the hypothetical. I'm on a company now, and I have a 110-pound firefighter who just shows up to work every day and a driver. And now I got to stretch to the second floor, or I got to stretch past two corners into a house. It's not your normal stretch. Is that going to make my push easier with average firefighters? Because I believe we're going to win in the fire service when we build efficiency and ease of use into the tools that we're using. And some
Hmm.
people says that's an excuse, but I say that, do you want to win or not? So when you're shooting pistols, a really good quality gun, right, is going to shoot a lot smoother than one that's not built well. And it's the same sort of analogy in my mind. If I could build a package that gets us to the seat of the fire faster with less people with the same result, then that's a win. The problem is you have to compromise on your GPM
Hmm.
and you have to lean on to that. Now, I'm only talking about your run of the mill residential house fires. I'm not talking about
Sure.
commercial jobs. or
Right.
any of that. This is the 98% of what we do as the American Fire Service. And I've been marinating on this for a long time. I'm not falling one way or another, but I tend to lean towards the reduction of GPM out of efficiency. But I know I'm on an island by myself in that thought. But I think there's some legitimacy to it.
I
Um,
think if that's true, if you're on an island by yourself on this, you and me would probably be roasting coconuts together because
mhm.
we've already said this. And if you focus on your citizens first and work backwards,
Yeah.
that would change some of the way you do things. So
Hmm.
I was one of those guys that more GPM, mo better, right?
Hmm.
But then when you factor in your resources, like the department I used to work
Hmm.
for had three people. You had a
Hmm.
captain, you had a sergeant, you had a pipeman. So
Hmm.
then I talked to Tony Carroll, retired battalion chief from DC.
Hmm. Yep.
He turned me on to some stuff. And so I'm going to say this. I agree with you. I
Hmm.
totally agree with you. I feel as if you can manage, if you can move a hand line faster and get water. Well, the FSRI studies have already shown that it's a lot less GPMs. So actually, a friend of
Yep.
mine, Chad Christensen, was in that study, and
Hmm.
I work for the ISFSI, the International Society of Fire Service Instructors.
Hmm.
I'm getting ready to go to New York and teach engine ops, which is
Hmm.
basically the FSRI studies.
Hmm.
So Chad is showing us the studies. This was a few months ago, and he said, "Okay, here's the 5 times we did this exact fire at UL. Uh,
Hmm.
okay." And he said the first time we did it, it was I hope I got this right. 2 rooms vented. The first
Hmm.
time it took 200, I want to say 52 gallons of water. Okay, that's manageable, right? And then you see these 4 other charts that are going down. And he got the same fire out with, again, double check. I will correct it if I'm wrong, 157 gallons of water, right? So now
Yeah.
my mind is blown. And then he says, now he was the one doing the study. He goes, why did it drop down? And we all looked around. He goes, because we trained. This is the 5th time we did it. We practiced it.
Right.
We knew what
Yep.
to do. All this to say, less GPMs. If it gets you to that fire quicker for them, do it. It's you'd be a fool not to look into it. If you
Yeah.
don't, if your attack packages are such that they're built on the idea of GPMs only, you may not be doing it right. Work
Yeah.
on your community.
It's a it's it's a tough debate and it comes at a high cost. But I think now is a better time than ever than start having this debate and questioning the GPM threshold. Not to say that it's right or wrong, but questioning out of efficiency because what's not changing is staffing in suburban fire departments. A lot of
Yep.
departments have two-person companies.
Mm-hmm.
Some of the stations north of me where I work, two-person companies. Where I work, three-person apparatus, two-person ambulances arriving on scene. So that is our service outside of the urban setting. And a lot of cities are also three-person staffing. But what also compelled me about those studies, and I've asked a lot of my friends about this. I say, well, what is it? Leaning back into the studies, is it on extinguishment? Is it GPM or is it location or is it both? Because I contend this: if you can
Right.
get the line to the fire, it does not take a lot to put an entire room out. Not a lot at all. Open,
Nope.
close, a whole
Nope.
room will be paused and stopped. Now, will it be fully extinguished? No. But the danger of the compounding chain reaction of a fire event is stopped in its tracks. And I asked this other day on Engine Company Resurrection page about can somebody tell me where someone has died actively fighting a fire on any size line, period.
Right.
And right now, I haven't looked at it in a bit, but nobody can give me one that is the direct correlating cause. So what does that tell you? Some form of water in the environment stops the process. Now, what the breakover is, what GPM is keeping us safe if you're being pinned down. I contend that 130 is plenty to keep where you're at safe to get out of an environment or get to an area of refuge. Um, if I was wrong, you would have a lot more people dying in the UK. They have a
Mhm.
particular way of which they attack fires, and I'm certainly not recommending 90 gallons or 60 gallons a minute high pressure. But what I'm saying is
Right.
they understand the fire dynamic a little more than we do, and they understand how to control the approach. Now the
Mhm.
big talk is cooling on approach. I don't know how to tell people this. They've been doing that for a very long time, differently over in the UK. They haven't called it that. It was something 3D,
We
whatever they're
we
doing.
we did the same thing before SCBA's. Flowing and
Yes,
moving is
you're
not
right.
new. It's not new. It's SCBA's kind of changed the game. Our gear changed the game. And
Yeah.
it's also not just GPMs. Here's where I fail: is I'd always look at everything as GPMs, GPMs, GPMs.
Mm-hmm.
But the truth of the matter is, it's not really. There's so many more variables. Who's handling the line?
Mm-hmm.
How many people do
Yep.
you have on the line? Location of the
Mm-hmm.
fire. But here's the biggest one. Here's the biggest one. I would argue is how you apply the water. I
Yeah.
I could sit there and take 185 GPMs and spray them right at
Mm-hmm.
the ground, and that's going to
Mm-hmm.
be the coolest surface ever walked on, but the fire ain't going to go out. I could spray to the back wall, and all that water is going to rain down. That's not going to do any good. But if I sprayed in such a way that mimics sprinklers, which by the way has not changed in 80, 90 years, and
Yep.
cool the box, could track the gases, and knowing that that cool air is coming behind me if I'm doing it right,
Yep.
that will take that 130
Yep.
GPMs and make it feel like 215
Mm-hmm.
GPMs. I'm telling you, it's you got to get out of this thing of it's only GPMs, and you got to get out of this thing
Yes.
of we are. I get so mad thinking about that. I'm getting mad. I'm gonna go up and yell at my wife and kick my dog in a minute. But
Dude,
I get
put your hand up.
put my hand up and say, "Girl," she's probably
Yeah, I
outside
gotta
that
tell you
door going
something.
like this, going, "We're gonna talk."
Yeah, yeah.
But um, we have to be bold. We have to be aggressive. Aggressive can be
Yeah.
a bad word. I don't mean it that
Yeah.
way. Safety can be a
Yes.
bad word, but I don't mean it that way. We have to understand our job better. We have to
Mm-hmm.
understand fire dynamics. We have to understand building construction.
Mm-hmm.
Everything else after that correlates. You know what I'm saying? So
Yes.
I get kind of mad that, people just accept certain things. And then you said something earlier about, we're slow to like change and all that. And I've always pushed back against that because we can go from watching Wheel of Fortune to being in a 900-degree room searching for a baby in 7 minutes.
No, it's true.
We should be the
Yeah.
group that's ready for change. But,
I know, but
the,
it's the personalities that we're drawing. Now, I will say this, and with a newer generation of people coming in, like my kids, they're in the early
Mhm.
20s, change is not a big deal. Like it comes rapidly for them, and they're okay
Yep.
with that. So I think what you're going to see in the next 10, 15 years is a lot of this, the debate won't be as long to get to an end product. People are going to
No,
be
you're
willing
right.
to try things and do things differently. Now, I want to say this one thing real quick, rounding back to the water application bit. So here's the irony of the statement that you just made, and this is a hand ad, unintentional, but this is the value of I see what they're doing. It's a blade, man. Like it's not hard to understand, but people are having a hard time wrapping their mind around it. So, like you said, it doesn't take a lot of water from a sprinkler. A sprinkler head. A sprinkler
Mhm.
head is a broken solid stream. It is not a fog stream. It's
Right.
broken because there's something in front of it. All the blade does is this, the hand that squeezes the stream into a blade pattern. So you're talking about if, I just got to work and put the water in the right space in the right place. That blade pattern is painting the brush of this space that me and you are trying to train people to work to put the nozzle. Isn't that
Yep.
ironic? When
That
when
is.
all we could do is say, "Hey, listen, man, open it, and I want you to do this. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Shut the nozzle down. Ask Kyle what he did in that fire. That was the specific manner which they told him, Kyle, open the nozzle, do not work the room. I want you to go up and down and paintbrush. That's all he
Mhm.
did. And he said, man, when I did that, he's like, dude, I'm telling you, DJ, it was like someone just shut everything down. It was like the room immediately cooled down. You could feel it. That the nozzle is the same GPM. It's drawing the same air in behind it. But now we have a better broadcast. Why are we resistant to that? Now, put that broadcasting nozzle on a more efficient package that we could put in this turd firefighter's hands and they could kill it with lesser skill. Is that not a win for
Yep.
the citizen? That's all I'm trying to say here. And,
Yep.
I know, whatever. I mean, people, like you said in the beginning of this podcast, I really don't, the people that care most to me are my family and my brother and a few of my mentors that I respect highly. And we can
Right.
have, like, my brother doesn't even necessarily agree with my perspective, but it's okay, like we can agree to disagree. It's just how I see it at the moment. It may change later. But I'm in the business of, I want to find and challenge a narrative to make packages more efficient. I hate to say it, for our worst end users, so we can have the most success in the street with the poorest of performing firefighters. That's all,
Yep.
you know?
I totally agree. It's a slippery slope because then you can go right back into the lazy fireman's favorite tool, which is the booster reel. And if people want to
Yes,
argue
that's
that
not
with
what I'm
me,
saying. Yeah.
no, 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 no. That's the slippery slope. That's the bottom of the slope. But being more
Hmm.
effective at what you do, um, if again, if you don't go to work every day and go, how am I going to make my citizens safer? That could be simply as just training with your crew, listen to a podcast, pulling some lines. It could be the simplest of things.
Hmm.
And if you add on top of that the fact that you don't know everything, you don't know
Yeah,
everything. You could talk to Aaron Fields about water, and I promise you, he would tell you, I don't know everything about it. I know a lot,
sure. Hmm.
and if you're a little bit humble, if you're a little bit eager, and if you think about your citizens first, you're going to be a better firefighter. Period. End of story.
Yeah. No, I agree with
Um,
that.
I've been every. Think about the worst firefighters. I've been that guy. I've been, like I said, I've done
Hmm.
that, and it's terrible because if you think about it honestly, it comes back to ego.
Hmm.
I didn't want to learn certain things because I didn't think I could learn it. I didn't want to teach certain things because I didn't know it that well. But you got to
Yeah.
really be passionate about this job. We've been given, to use your words, a lottery ticket, a winning lottery ticket to be
Hmm.
firefighters. We're not digging ditches. We're not roofing houses.
No,
Nothing wrong with that. I've done both,
right.
and I hated both.
Me too.
But
It's hard work.
we, yeah, it is definitely very physical work, and it doesn't really work your brain all that much,
Mm-mm.
which I think firefighting is. I hate when people say this is a blue collar job. It used to be. It's not a
Hmm.
white collar job. It's a light blue collar job because
Yeah, I agree.
the science is there now. The science is showing us what we did wrong and what we did right. And if you fight science, to me, that's the most ridiculous thing in the world. I actually had a captain tell me during live burns, we're going to leave every door. If I open a door and window for this basement fire evolution, you're going to leave them open. And I said, no, I'm not.
Hmm.
He's like, well, I'm like, why would I do that? Well,
Right.
how am I going to see? I don't know. You don't use your tick. You're a truck company.
Yeah.
Be aggressive.
Yeah.
And I
Yeah.
try to teach the science behind that. It's counterproductive. It's so weird to go into a
Yes,
building and try to
it
close the
is.
door. But
It is.
you know what? It's our job. Our job is hard. Our citizens think we walk around with great big brass balls.
Hmm.
Why not try to live up to that? Why not try to be a better firefighter for your citizens?
It's true. The science, I think, it's part of a training division and officer specifically, is we have to understand the science, and then we have to be able to communicate that in the most simple, logical, common sense form. So an example of some flow path stuff, we were talking about BES the other day on our job, and we're doing what we call a quarterly test on a probationary firefighter. There's three of them. This was his final test, and they did a VES evolution, simulated, of course, and they were talking about searching beyond the room. That was a scenario. They're the
Right.
truck company. They're searching beyond the room, unknown if the fire is in check, but high probability of entrapment. We go in, what tools are we carrying? The culture is to carry a New York hook and irons. And I said, here's the deal. New York hook slows you down. I recommend that you carry a Halligan bar and axe just to have with you. But when you're searching, use your hands, right? That's your best tools, blah, blah, blah. But we got
Mhm.
to the beyond the door bit. We got to flow path, and everyone sort of shared their bit. And I said, think about maybe doing this. I said, it is counterproductive, couldn't do it, productive rather,
Mhm.
to close doors behind you. But you need to be comfortable with that. And I said, if you're uncomfortable about losing orientation in a crappy situation, bring that New York hook or bring your tool and throw it in the corner of that door and then shut the door behind you and keep going on. So if you got to bail out and you're coming back to where you thought it was, you're sweeping the floor, or maybe you have a little bit of visibility, you're going to see that tool. And now that tool is going to keep the door open. It's going to limit that flow path, but it's still going to
Right.
give you an indicator back to where your safe area is. And they're like, oh,
Yep.
okay, man, yeah, that's a good thought. But if you're not understanding the science and the flow path and the why behind it, that's just another dumb idea.
Right.
So to
And,
your point that we need to be looking at stuff, but not overcomplicating it. keeping it very simple for people to recall in the heat of the moment.
No, and it's not. It's not because firemen are simple or stupid. It's because
Right.
we are in a chaotic crisis moment, and if we can
Hmm.
simplify that, we're making our job better. I love the idea of having, everybody has their little Survive Air lights on their thing. I love them to death. I like having two. And I
Yeah.
tell you why. As soon as you go into a room, you put it right by the door. It's
Hmm.
on. If it's got the strobe effect, all the better. It's the
Yep.
same idea what you're talking about. And depending on your smoke conditions, you can turn it down towards the ground. So if you have to get down and look, you got
Hmm.
it. But those little things really benefit the citizen. And again, that's what we got to do. We got to take our ego out of it. Now, you said the VES word. You brought this up. I want you to know.
Hmm.
So there's a video that has made the rounds. This video actually happens to be in one of our ISFSI classes that we teach.
Oh,
This one was
cool.
NFPA 1700, and it's talked about with nothing but great respect because it's
Cool.
shown as an example of how to do stuff. Do you know the video I'm talking about?
I think I do.
Okay.
I think I'm
I
aware.
was for those that don't know, it's going to be down in the description. It's going to be on my Facebook and everything because it is rarely do you get to see high quality stuff done exactly like it should be done, right? I'm not saying they don't exist, but sometimes you come across a video and you're like, "Holy shit, that's a good video." So I was wondering if I could play it, and then if you guys are listening in your car, go check me out on YouTube because it's going to be there. I'd like to play it. It's about 3 minutes long, and I'll turn the sound down. I know the sound's kind of important, but to have you discuss and tell what's going on. And then you could talk
Sure.
about the victim and why the sound would probably be important because it's really an interesting fire. So if you don't mind, I'd like to do that.
Yeah, so you want me to kind of just talk it through while it's happening, maybe?
Just narrate it if you don't
Okay.
mind.
Yeah,
And
sure.
if you want, I could make stuff up. Uh,
Sound effects,
yeah, yeah.
preferably.
This is me saving all these babies. And okay, let's see.
Uh,
Let's see if you can see it. Can you see it there?
yeah, I sure can. So,
Okay,
real quick,
so
before we get started, I'll set it up. This was about 4:30 in the morning. We had been up earlier that night running to the old folks' home because that's what we do in suburban
right,
America. Half awake, on the way in, confirmed multiple call entrapment. Right?
okay,
Cops had gotten there. They had tried to get somebody that was trapped in a vacant. Nobody was supposed to be there. Vacant home.
right.
So that's the setup.
Okay. And so I'll fire it up here. It's 3 minutes long, and it's such a good example of how VES should be done and how the good aggressive firefighting should be done. Helmet cam view. I'll
Yeah.
try
So
to
these.
describe it a little bit after
Yeah.
fill in some blanks.
Hmm. Yeah. This was the cop. What I would call the alpha side approaching the delta side. Every room in this house was on fire, with the exception of where she retreated to, which is the back Charlie Delta corner, let's call it. And everything was boarded up, screwed, you know, into the window frame, OSB. In my initial, when I'm pulling up on this video, my initial size up, and this is edited for time, obviously. My initial size up was small block structure stretching 150 for attack. So we were going to be in attack mode, even though we
Mhm.
knew we had entrapment, because the next do is pretty quick. So
And
as
if
soon
you
as I
need me to
stepped
stop it,
off,
let me know and I'll stop it.
yeah, go ahead and pause real quick, and I'll sort of catch up on what was going through our mind because it goes pretty quickly.
Okay.
When we pulled up on scene, as I'm making the corner, knowing we have a working fire, now this is if I could replay it, I would have had my mask on, but I didn't. I called back to my firefighter, and we already called the line. I said, I want, the red line, a 150 line stretch, because it was a small block, straight shot. No big deal. Like, I'd worked with these guys for a long time. He knew what we meant. He
Is this you
confirmed
right
it.
here in the red helmet?
Correct. Yes, we made the
Okay.
corner, and then now I'm working on the vent. So as soon as I got off, I
Sexy
was
ass
met.
fireman doing sexy ass fireman shit.
No, now, if you attend my class, I'll get into some what went right and wrong because there were certainly some things that we could have done a lot better on this one. But um, as soon as I get off, I was encountered just like the video stated. Now it's a combination. What you see in the class and this is a combination of my GoPro that I had on me, and then 5 other cops that were there on the scene.
Okay.
Now, I get off. He says, man, she's right over here. So I'm like, oh, man, I got to look at it. We make decisions on what we see. I got to see what's going on over there before I can maybe call an audible. So as soon as I made the corner, the science, the study, the flow path, all that, you see it when you watch the video, it's telling a tale. This is the
Mhm.
last compartment of the building that's not on fire, number one. Number two, they had made a vent hole, they being the cops, and a fire was approaching very quickly to that location. Number three, when I rounded the corner, I could literally hear the woman yelling through that little hole. They couldn't get her out. She was talking. And I'm like, oh man, the only thing, this is my thought process. I looked at that and I thought, the only thing that will stop this process is water, somehow or another into the space. That was it. I didn't
Mhm.
overthink it. It was just like, we got to get water there. I yelled to Scott, the fireman riding backwards, and I said, hey man, stretch that line around to the side here. And I'll say this, the question I get all the time is, man, you guys stretch a line every VES? I'm like, no. Every VES I've had up to this point, I never stretched the line to. But the scene demanded that. The
Yeah.
line was available. So that's why we did it. And the
Because you
water
knew the
is the
flow path.
thing.
Sorry to interrupt you, but I get excited talking about this. You knew because you studied, you know what you're doing. You saw that with that hole, the high pressure was now going to be moving to the low pressure. The cops
Yeah,
trying to do their best. They created a new flow path. They changed it, and you knew
100%.
that, and that's why you called for the water.
Yes. Yes. And the question is, man, would you guys would have done that, if you didn't have a report of entrapment? And I went, no, no, way too much fire. I would have never VES that without intel. But we had direct intel, we had confirmed entrapment, and we had very high velocity smoke. I don't really pay attention to color, I pay attention to speed. To keep it simple. If it's moving fast, fire is near. That was moving fast, fire is near. I knew two things had to happen. We had to get the window open, we had to get water into space, and we had to get masked up. And so this is edited for time because it was edited for our city council
Mhm.
in a short clip. But I do pretty close timeline for the class, and it's like takes forever to get masked up, so it's nothing great. It's kind of embarrassing, but nothing to hide. Video doesn't hide anything, you know what I mean?
Yes, sir.
But yeah, so all that to say, we're now at the point pulling the board off of this window, and let me tell you, it was not coming off. It wasn't. It was just chipping away, and she is screaming in there. And so that's where we're at right now, and I'm trying to get that off as fast as I can.
All right, I fired back up. Here you are.
That's the GoPro footage there of
That's
me
from you,
pulling
right?
it. Yep. And at this moment, when I pulled it, I seen the fire start coming in the window. She is literally yelling at that moment where fire is blowing out the window. She's alive. She's talking. She's screaming.
All right, I gotta stop right here now. I want you guys to go to the YouTube and watch this because right here on this particular video at 111, uh, so DJ knocks the a bigger hole, and again, fire's predictable. If it's predictable, it's
Yep.
preventable. Now it has the
Yep.
right mix.
Hmm.
So watching this right here, and then you saying immediately thereafter, I'm hearing her screaming. You know she's
Yeah.
alive because that
Wild,
had to
man.
be, yeah, it had to like just mess with your head.
Yeah. So all I could just water, water, water. Oddly enough, we just had Ray McCormick over to our facility doing some regional training on hitting it hard from the yard. So
Right.
the video, the longer version, you see the technique that he's using. You see he's keeping it up into the overhead and he's moving it slowly. That was intentional. That wasn't happenstance.
That was
Like,
water mapping. That was good.
yes, he knew to do that. We had trained on that very thing. And so at this point, she's still verbal inside. She's still
Hmm.
alive. Everything is still viable. He flowed. He got a quick knock. Now, right about a minute after he shut the nozzle off, a line was introduced into the front. Because that's the thing that our drivers knew and that I told them before I went through there. I even told the cops, I said, I need a line in that front door. Because I knew as soon as I'm going head in, bro, if I don't get water on that, I'm going to be in a bad way. So thankfully, my driver had put the line down. The next two company grabbed it and was flowing through the front door at this particular moment here.
How
But
far away from the window was she?
literally directly below the window. I thought
Oh
in my
wow.
mind, that's why I called Scott in with me. I thought in my mind, I'm like, she's right here. But this video is moving quickly. When I got in and I could hear, and I said, "Where are you at?" I'm scanning with a camera. I got nothing. It's extremely hoarded environment with a bunch of junk. She says,
Mhm.
"You're standing on me," and I went, "Oh my God!" I said, "I'm sorry. Like we're talking. It's
Yeah.
crazy." And so I stepped away, and she's still talking. I'm like, I just can't find her. So I called Scott in. Well, long story short, humans do crazy things. She had barricaded herself under some boards and debris in that. So she survived that event because she had shielding inside of that compartment space. She had enough clean air on the bottom to stay alive, and that's what's so compelling about it. Is like, oh, how could she survive that, thermal assault? Well, she got under some stuff. Humans are going to do things that self-preserve, and that's exactly what she did. And
And then the
I
thermal assault was stopped almost immediately with excellent application of
That's
water the
it.
correct way. And
And the
when
temperature's cooled.
the temperature's cooled, the gas is contracted. Now, when gases
Hmm.
contract, there's got to be something to replace it. There's only one thing that can replace it. And I'm not telling you, I'm telling people listening, is
Yep, of
cool
course.
air. So if you watch this video, golly, every time I see that fire come out when you breach it, and then she's still talking, and then the water application, solid gold money, that that was one of the vital things that keeping her alive, right? There's a bunch of things, but by cooling that area, even just for a little
Yes,
bit,
yes.
she's alive today. So I'm sorry, go right ahead. I love this video.
You're 100. No,
Oh,
you're
that
saying
was
what I'm
it.
saying. You're 100% correct. And here's a little pitch from an FDIC class. If you want to know more and you want to see three other examples like this of actual documented rescues and what went right and what went wrong, look me up. Grab analysis at the FDIC. Or I travel around and teach it a little bit too. But yeah, I go at a bit more of a deeper dive, and exactly what you say is the point. It's not secret. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah,
but here's the deal. You on average have 10 seconds or less to make that determination on the tactic you're going to use. So
yeah,
if you don't know this stuff, if you don't drill for these moments in some capacity, you're going to fall back to your training. And if there's nothing there and it's an empty box, you're going to fall back to failing, essentially, or you're going to do nothing. This is not the time to do nothing. This is the time to immediately, without thinking, default to something. And I would, so some of this is luck. A lot of it is we've been down this road in a drill, this exact
mhm,
scenario recently before this, and we have been drilling and training with this particular crew. I believe in longevity of crew. That's how you build chemistry and performance. I have been with these dudes for nearly 4 years. And so we had been through several really difficult fires and stuff together up to this point. So the performance was reflecting our discipline to train, essentially, and to be students. And it's not a brag. It's just I feel like there's a result for everything because I didn't think and process through really a lot of anything. I just responded, man. I wish I had a better piece of advice, but I just responded to kind of what was here in that moment in the most simple form. And thank God things went right that night for this woman.
well, I'm going to say this
You
right
know,
now, and you need to be thankful. I'm not trying to tell you what to do, but I'm going to tell you right now, you need to be thankful this is a Zoom because I would kiss you right on the mouth face to face. You
you go
said
kiss your
all
wife for
the
me.
things. I will kiss my wife. Her mustache is a little bit bigger. Oh shit!
Yeah.
I better not say
Oh,
that.
that's messed up.
All right, so you
Uh,
land on top of her. She got debris on her, which understandably you're like, okay, I'm hearing noise, but you think you're pretty much
yeah.
on the floor. You see her, you call in to get help, and now we're at the point where I believe you're trying to get her up and over. Now she's still talking, right?
Hmm.
And
So
you
what
find her, and
happened? We got in. I couldn't find her. I brought Scott in. We started throwing debris like crazy off of her.
mhm.
Almost simultaneously, Scott says, "I've got her head," and then my flashlight swings, and that was part of that video. And I see her head. I'm like, "Hey, I got her. I'm on her right side." He said, "I'm on her left side." So here's the cool thing.
Oh, that's
You know
perfect.
who? You know who called the lift and orchestrated getting her out? Wasn't me. It
Who?
was my fireman. He said, "I've got
Really?
her." Okay. He said, "Are you ready?" And I said, "Yeah." And we didn't, I mean, we practiced this stuff. So we really didn't think about it to communicate. He said, "Okay, ready. 1, 2, 3, lift." He directed everything, which
What's
was
his name? I want to
friggin'
give him a shout
awesome.
out.
Scott Caskey, and he's now a driver since he was, when I promoted to battalion, everybody bumped up. The driver for this call was an officer, and Scott become a driver at my department, and he's still a driver, step up officer to this day. But yeah, Scott Caskey is his name, and Bobby Anderson was the driver, which is a whole nother conversation. But he did an outstanding job, and if he wasn't on it, we would have some serious issues as a driver. But anyhow, he came in and at the same time, and we basically co-lifted, and this is what I've changed on VES since then. Is it's again, people ask, we drill all the time sending one guy through the window. Well, my
Mhm.
question is, why would you not just bring your other guy in with you and let him be
Right.
in window orientation as a minimum? So the question isn't, well, why do we need to? Is like, why not? Why would you not just bring him in? So that
Mhm.
is my recommendation on VES: is get inside with your partner, because this lady wasn't 110 pounds, but you know what? I needed help getting her out because of the
Yeah.
debris, because of the challenges that we faced, because I couldn't find her. So if I would have done it differently, I would have brought him immediately. He would have dove in with me, period,
Right.
and at least stayed by the window as an orientation. It's a 10 by 10 room, man. Really, should we be that scared? I mean, let's be honest. Like 10
Right.
by 10, get in, get out. So that was the case. He got in and he lifted her, and we lifted her upright. We both simultaneously swung our legs up underneath where her butt and her back was to support her, and we pushed her up against the wall. That was move number one. And then without saying a word, we both moved to move number two, and we both grabbed her lower thigh and knee and lifted her up and pushed her out. And we didn't care if there was someone there to receive her or not.
You just
Didn't
want to get her
matter.
in the.
Life over limb.
Yeah.
She was getting out,
Yep. Yep.
And as soon as she got out, I sent him out. I said, Scott, go ahead and get out. And I'm going to finish the search because the room is small. And if things go south, I don't want you in here with me anyways, is my thought. So just, you go ahead and get out. I'm already here. Let me finish this and then I'll join you when I get out.
That's
And
two
that was
kisses
really
you
it.
would have got. Two kisses you would have got.
That was really that was really it, and it was the most simple form. That was the first thing Scott said on the way back that night. We're heading back to the station. He goes, "Hey," I'm like, "Yeah." He's like, "Man, there was nothing advanced about anything we did." And I said, "No, and no, not
No.
at all. Very basic. All of it was basic."
There. So what is? I believe it's at FD&TN. Is it Jim McCormick that said there's no advanced skills, just mastery of the basics, and all what you've described,
Yes.
everything you're watching is mastery of the basics. Now, when we show this video, it's kind of cool now because I can say, "Oh, I talked to DJ Stone about it," but
Whatever. Man.
yeah.
I'm nobody, man.
So the one thing we talk about is how she was talking in an environment, and you
Yes.
can hear her on the
Yes.
video
Hmm.
that she shouldn't have been able to survive, but because of the excellent training, all that stuff, right? She comes out. Now, when she goes up, she passes out because of the
She was
smoke. Is that
out. Yeah.
correct?
By the
Yeah.
time we
And
get
then,
her to the window, she was unconscious.
but when she got outside, did she not come back?
Hmm. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. She was breathing, and
But that's VES. I mean,
yeah.
that is wonderful.
Yeah, and she was a
Wonderful.
homeless woman, but and I understood she lived. They
Mhm.
took her to Birmingham to get treatment. They flew her out to Birmingham because our hospital is a small hospital.
Mhm.
And to my understanding, I mean, she made a recovery, but who knows where she's at? She might be on the streets. I don't. And in a weird twist of fate, she was related to another local fireman, like a cousin or something like that. That was
Really?
down on hard times. Yeah. So I got word that she's living and doing fine, but I've never seen her since. But it doesn't matter, does it? Like we were doing a job that was the height of any job, that the whole reason we get into the job are for those moments. And I
Mhm.
was just lucky to be part of a successful moment because God knows, probably like you and many others, I've had some unsuccessful VES and searching otherwise attempts that
Yep.
didn't turn out that way because it wasn't the right set of circumstances and timing. And this one we just happened to get lucky. And just to cap it off, like if you come to the class, I'll share a little bit of my opinion on maybe some of the why behind her survivability, because there was some real, you know, I mean, maybe it was a little bit of training, a little bit of luck, but in my opinion, you know, God had another person for this woman, a purpose for this woman that night, because she should not have survived. And we
Yep.
found some indicators that were just unbelievable. Anyways, I kind of go into that a little bit in the class, but one of the things I show in the class is the room. I don't know if you ever got pictures of the room
No, I
that
never
was
saw that.
burned
I'd
in.
love to see
I'll,
it.
I'll, I'll, I'll send them to you after our
Oh,
conversation. I'll send them to you to look. But the
nice.
demarcation line of destruction and fire is just remarkable. I mean, really, a
Is it
human shouldn't have
right above
lived in
her or
that.
something? Like barely above her?
It is a clear demarcation line at about the 2 foot level and above. And when I say demarcation, I mean bubbling, burned up paint above. Yet,
Uh,
she still survived. How does that happen? She was low to the ground, she was protected. Water entered the atmosphere and cooled it so she didn't get burned up. Fourthly, I would say there was a pretty good vent because it started burning through the roof, right
Hmm.
about the time it burned out the window. And as soon as we applied water from both directions, it cooled the environment rapidly. The downside is it probably also suppressed the smoke into her space, because
Hmm.
even in the worst of fires, right, you have an intake and an exit, intake and exhaust. That
Right.
intake is usually what, 12 inches or less to the floor. So human nature, we're going to get low as we can to breathe the cleanest air. And she did all
Right.
the right things that night. And
That's
oh,
well.
also there was no door to be there was no door to isolate. Sorry, all you isolate people. Sometimes there's no way to isolate it. There was no door. It was a vacant structure where the door was ripped off the hinges for whatever reason.
Right.
So
That is awesome, man. I'm all. This is how you do a Friday. This is how you do a Friday. You get to see something like that, and get the backstory, and then you
yeah,
know, oh, it's awesome. I tell you what, I'm going to wrap this up. I appreciate your time so much. This is one of my. This is awesome. I love it. But I do want to end. Well, first, let's do this. I definitely want to see DJ Stone at FDIC. I want to
yeah.
see him around the country. How do people find you?
A couple ways. Of course, I'm on social media, but I'm not on TikTok. I'm just too old for that. I can't get on board. But Facebook, all the old people hang out there.
Yes.
David James Stone is my name on that, or 850 Fireman, and my email is 850fireman at gmail.com. Nothing I have is proprietary. I don't keep it close to the chest. I do keep the videos I share in my presentation because I don't technically have permission dem- to give that out, right?
Hmm.
Because of how I acquired the footage. So you got to come to class to see the extended version of the video you just saw and three other videos. Um, but anyhow, afovafireman at gmail.com. Reach out to me. I do a bit of travel if people want to hear the program. I travel to share it. That's really the only kind of thing that I do. It's the only story I have to tell. Um, and then grab analysis finally at FDIC is the name of the
Yes.
class, the grab analysis. And essentially that is covering not only this call, but three other pretty dramatic grabs and one other one I was involved as a battalion chief on right before I left my department about a year and a half ago. And so I essentially just do what we just did right here. We go through a conversation. What worked? What didn't work? If you have questions, you ask them. I try to answer them, and it's all real life stuff. I'm not sharing other people's stories. I'm sharing my story and then
Mhm.
my local story that I've had direct connection with each one of these. And what also I think makes it kind of unique is I interview in the program. I interview the officers and players involved with their particular grab, asking them, "What was your experience? Like, what would you do differently?" Kind of a thing. So, anyways, I'm a little biased because it's the thing that I share, but I don't think you'd be disappointed if you decide to come and check it out at FDIC, or not, because there's a gazillion great classes out there. But yeah,
Yeah,
that
but come
that's
on,
my
man.
pitch. That's my pitch.
I'm going to jump on top and tell these people to run, don't walk to this class. Run. This is such a great example of science versus experience versus just playing, having 2 seconds to make a decision. So it's one
Yeah.
of the best examples out there. I applaud you for it. Now, I got to hear what's the best firehouse prank you've played or if I played on you.
So I'm not much of a jokester or prankster. But I will say, right when I got hired into a department where my brother worked. My brother was pretty well respected and well liked at this department at City of Fort Walton. It's a department that I did grow up around, and as luck would have it, my first assignment was to a pretty aggressive battalion chief and group of people at the busy station. And this battalion chief happened to know my dad and worked with him and went to rookie school with him. So there was all these connections. Now, this same battalion chief also was a guy that wrote the first hydraulics manual for the state of Florida for pump operations. So he's very smart, kind of like one of us back then
Mhm.
in 2001 when I started. And he was at the tail end of his career. So I'm brand new, and uh, we get, I don't know what the call was. Maybe it might have been an alarm or whatever. We get a call in the middle of the night, and we work in a truck company on a busy road in our area, in a commercial area, and it's about 12:30 in the morning, and there's always people. I'm talking always people walking the street where I'm at. So everybody's asleep. It was back in the day we had one big giant bunk room, right? So
Yeah.
everyone slept in the same room, including him. We all get up and turn out. Well, he was going on the call with us, and his car was parked right next to where I was getting in at the nozzle seat on the ladder truck. And I had gym shorts on. And I don't know how it's well known, but it's well known. I, as a young man, didn't wear much underwear. So I'm there. I stepped my feet into the boots. I had to have been an alarm or a fire because I was in a hurry. I stepped my feet in the boots and I bend down to pull my pants up. When I do that, it comes right behind me and he just deep pants me. There's a group of people walking past the front of the firehouse. When
Oh.
he does that and he just starts laughing and just walks off. And those people like turn and look at me and I'm mortified, man. I'm butt naked standing in bunker pants and I'm trying to pull my pants up. Yeah, I think it was a fire. Like of all times to do that, he pulls this prank out on me on a serious call. And I scrambled to get everything put on really quick because you never want to be the last one on the rig when you're brand new. So I don't
No,
even think I had a
no.
year on the job. And I just remember him laughing and just kind of walking away slowly. And the dude's looking at me and everybody is just cracking on me, man. The people out front saw it. It was terrible. But I look back and I say, that's pretty funny, man. Like,
That's a pretty
I
good
don't know
one.
if you
I
could,
wouldn't
I
want
don't
it
know if
done
you
to
could do
me,
that
but
now.
yeah.
Right,
Oh
right.
no.
Like these days,
No.
somebody would have been offended and whatever. But it was good, man. Yeah. I haven't
And
done
you
a
never
lot of
got him
pranks.
back?
Oh no, absolutely not, man. I ain't getting him back. No, he's still intimidating to this day.
Oh
When I
wow.
see him, his name is Dave Messerschmidt, Chief Messerschmidt, and he's a great dude, man. And he definitely impacted my career, early on, and my brothers in the city we worked in a positive way. But yeah, he was a funny prankster. I'm more of a self-deprecating humor guy,
I get it.
whatever. I'm not. I'm just not that quick-witted. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But that was a good one. I got to give him
Uh,
credit. That was a good one.
that sounds
So
like a good one. Listen, brother,
yeah,
I've had the absolute best time. I thought we were going to go an hour. I'm so happy that we went as long as we did. I wish I didn't have a doctor's appointment, but I've got to get another penis shortening surgery. So that, you know how that goes.
I
Um,
hate it when those appointments
with it,
happen, man.
oh, dude, it just never takes. It never takes.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah.
with that, thank you for being on the show. You
Thank you.
lived up
Appreciate it.
to all the hype that I put it on myself about this and more so. So thank you so much, brother.
You're too kind. Thank you for the opportunity, man, to listen to coastal suburban nobody. So I appreciate it. I do. I just love to talk about the job like you and a bunch of other people. So yeah,
I
I'm
love it.
grateful
I
for the
love it.
opportunity. Thank you.
Hey, brother, stay safe.
Thank you.
Today's podcast was sponsored by Fire Facilities, industry leading designers and manufacturers of realistic, built to last training structures for more than 30 years. Make your training count. Visit firefacilities.com for more information.